Good morning. So, as Mark introduced, I'm Talia Rogers, and this is my husband, Matt. We are relatively new members to the church, so please don't feel bad if you don't quite recognize our faces yet, although you may have seen or likely heard our two young children, Beckett and Emerson, running around on Sundays. So, in the spirit of reflecting upon stewardship this month, I'd like to start with a story about how when you give to the church, it gives back. My story starts in the early 90s in the Chicago suburbs. I was in middle school, and I don't think I'm alone in remembering those times as being pretty tough. I was awkward, unsure of who I was, unsure of who my friends were, and just trying to find my place in the world. And I'm grateful that I had the support of my church community during that time. I was encouraged by our youth minister to attend a one-week sleepover camp at Pilgrim Park Outdoor Ministry in Princeton, Illinois. The camp was not so creatively named Sports Camp, and its mission was to develop teamwork, sportsmanship, improving yourself, and your spiritual awareness, all while having fun playing sports, as the name implies. And it truly changed me. 1 week at this rustic camp, playing and growing alongside other awkward middle schoolers, I experienced something magical at Pilgrim Park Outdoor Ministry. I left that week feeling more confident in myself, in my community, and my connection to God. I had found my church at this camp, and it kick-started my spiritual journey of fellowship and faith. This experience for me and many other youth was made possible by the support of the congregation in both time and treasure, to steal a phrase from Judy and Guy last week. But my story doesn't quite stop there. There was another awkward middle schooler who also attended Pilgrim Park Sports Camp. Hint, hint, he's standing right next to me. Yes, we both went back to this camp as young adults to volunteer our time each summer to pass on the experiences that we had had to future generations of youth. So yes, we went back to rustic cabins, mosquitoes, and a bunch of stinky middle schoolers every summer to pay it forward. And it's a good thing we did because, well, as they say, we met at sports camp and the rest is history. So we're living proof that when you give to the church, it gives back. So now I'll turn it over to my husband, who has grown up, thankfully, quite a bit from that awkward middle schooler, kicking a soccer ball around Pilgrim Park.
Thanks. Still a little awkward once in a while. Still a little awkward. Good morning. As Tally mentioned, being very new members here at the church, you know, the reality is that we haven't been part of, Tally and I and our family, this rich legacy that personally I've learned so much about these past weeks here at the church, specifically and including Reverend John Calhoun's sermon just from a few weeks ago. But although we haven't been part of this legacy, Tally and I and our kids are excited to be part of MBCC going forward and living this legacy. Being part of this church, this community, and striving to live in the spirit of that legacy, Tally and I see it as being really a mutually supporting relationship. As Talia put it, you know, when you give to the church gives back. You know, we believe, as I think many of you do, that this church community is not made up of these four walls and the roof over our heads, but rather each person sitting in here today, and also members of the church that aren't here today that are part of the congregation. That's the church, and that's our church community. We've heard from Mark even mention this idea over the previous weeks, not only with us, but also our kids during time with children in front here. And it's that community that's created, it's maintained, really, we think, not as a single one-way relationship. You know, my belief is that in order for this community to grow and thrive, it takes a commitment from its members, from us. Active and participating members create such a strong community, and part of that participation is a financial commitment to the health of the church. Most, if not all, people in this church know more about the history of MBCC's support and service in the surrounding community than I do. These efforts would include things like Project Needs, Habitat, 736 Family Crisis Center, just to name a few. MBCC's participation and help with these efforts and causes is not only possible from, it's only possible, from active participating members within this church community. And again, I'm not telling you something you already know a lot about more than myself. I'm simply highlighting and reminding you, as fellow members of this church, how important it is to continue our commitments to the church during this time of stewardship reflection. Hopefully you agree with these ideas, and also joining Tally and I with a financial commitment to our church community. Thanks.